wasn't just Hollywood magic, it was real.
The chemistry between all of us was so amazing. The spirit, the family spirit, you couldn't have faked it.
I'm just glad to have been a part of it. To be a part of it. It's not over yet.
I think the show is important to people in America because it came at a time when America was in discord.
The year was 1972, and America was desperate for an escape from the world events they watched on the evening news. The war raged on in Vietnam. The White House suffered the embarrassment of Watergate, and the Israeli Olympic team lost their lives at the hands of terrorists. And on Thursday, September 14th, the public found their escape on Waltons Mountain. While most viewers could not relate to the series' Depression-era setting, they easily identified with the loving family that stayed together through hardship and happiness.
The series, to most of the audience, I think, represented their own life experience or the experience they wished they had had.
Series creator and narrator Earl Hamner based the show on his own experiences growing up in the mountains near Schuyler, Virginia. One of 8 children, he is known to the cast as the real John Boy, and he first dramatized his childhood in a novel that became the 1963 film Spencer's Mountain. It starred Henry Fonda in a role based on Hamner's father.
My father always had a dream, which was that he would buy this mountain and buy and build what he called his dream house for my mother. And I wrote that into the book, Spencer's Mountain. It was a fulfillment of my father's dream.
Hamner was not pleased with the film, but 8 years later he got a second chance to honor his family's legacy. He wrote a sequel to Spencer's Mountain, a Christmas-themed TV movie called The Homecoming, which was later turned into a series.
Warner Brothers owned the rights to Spencer's Mountain, and they would not give us the right to use the Spencer's name, so we came up with Walton, which sounded like a good, sturdy name.
In 1971, Hamner set about casting the child actors who would bring his life story to prime time.
I was so excited about it. I thought it was a great story, but I had no idea that it was the beginning of sort of the rest of our lives.
I remember showing up in cutoff shorts and a t-shirt and pigtails, and according to Earl, at that point they just went, oh, that, in his mind, that was it. Before I even opened my mouth.
They said, you got the part in The Homecoming, and I said, and what's the character? They said, Jason. I went, shoot, I wanted John Boy. He got all the good stuff to do.
The Homecoming featured all 7 of the Waltons' young stars, but only one of the series' adult leads, Ellen Corby, who starred as Esther Walton, the grandmother. Patricia Neal originally played the mother, Olivia, and is delighted that the movie often airs at Christmas.
I was told that it was left out 2 years, and they got so many letters. Everybody wanted that to play at Christmas time.
But when CBS decided to turn the movie into a series, Neal chose not to return and was replaced by an unknown stage actress named Michael Learned, who still remembers the day she tested for the role.
I was very hungover that day, actually. And your first Hollywood screen test and you're hungover. And I got the part, and it really saved my life because I had no money. I had 3 kids, and it was just a miracle. It was like one of those gifts from the heavens, you know.
Originally scheduled against 2 hit series, The Flip Wilson Show and The Mod Squad, The Waltons was expected to fail. But by its 2nd season, the show had connected with audiences and became a ratings smash, bested only by All in the Family.
We were doing a show where we were barefoot and wearing ratty clothes and had our pigtails, no makeup. So I think people felt that they could relate to us more because we were very human.
Have you seen Mary Ellen? She hasn't come home from school yet.
I think because a lot of people expected the series to fail, I didn't get the kind of interference that you usually get from a network. And so I was free to do the stories I wanted to do.
The success of those stories brought the cast instant fame, which wasn't always easy, especially for the children.
Everyone at school would make fun of me because in LA in the 70s, admitting you watched the Waltons was not cool.
I remember trying to eat in a restaurant and someone grabbing my fork away before I could put the food in my mouth to ask for an autograph.
But for Richard Thomas, who became the heart of the series as John Boy, celebrity had its perks.
No, I like it. I figure you got friends everywhere you go. Oh, and the famous part is good, too, because, you know, it feeds the huge voracious, insatiable ego. Great.
Mary Ellen, you are pretty.
But not like you.
I remember when they told me how much I'd be making a week, I thought, I will never be able to spend this much money. Never. Well, I learned very quickly.
The Waltons lasted for 9 seasons, although Thomas and Learned both left the series early to pursue other roles. But in 1981, diminishing ratings led to cancellation, and the cast said their goodbyes.
I had real mixed feelings. A part of me was very sad to be letting go of something that had been so much a part of my life for so long, and yet there was a certain apprehension and excitement about finding out what my life was going to be after that.
Even after the series left the air, its popularity endured. And in 1993, the surviving members of the cast reunited for the TV movie A Walton Thanksgiving Reunion, set at the time of President Kennedy's assassination in 1963. 2 more TV movies followed, and Hamner says another may be on the way.
I have a script at CBS now. It's a wonderful script, and all we need to do is for Les Moonves to say yes, and we're ready to go.
There's something very awe-inspiring and humbling about knowing that you are part of television history, and that, you know, a place like the Smithsonian wants to have an evening honoring the show.
My personal debt is just so huge that it may take more than one lifetime to feel all the feelings that I have about it.
And lately, there's actually been a little bit of music coming from Walton's Mountain. Some of the stars got together to make a CD of songs inspired by the show, and we'll take you inside the studio.
Coming up on Entertainment Tonight's The Waltons Reunion.
Richard Thomas talks about growing up John Boy.
I can see it on the tombstone. John Boy dead at 105.
Mary McDonough goes home with her TV brother. Meet the real-life people the Waltons were based on.
Everyone says, hey, you two really look alike.
We're taking a trip with the cast to Waltons Mountain in Virginia. The courageous story of one Waltons kid. The tragic death of his wife and his new love today.
It was like immediately we connected so quick and so wonderfully.
That's next.
Welcome back to Entertainment Tonight's The Waltons Reunion.
The Waltons touched many lives on TV, so in 1992, series creator Earl Hamner decided to open up a museum near his childhood home and let the world experience the real setting that had become Waltons Mountain. This is where the story started, in the shadow of the Blue Ridge Mountains, in a little town called Schuyler in Nelson County, Virginia. It was here that Earl Hamner was born in 1923. It was in this house that he grew up. In 1992, this real-life John Boy came home, inviting E.T. and our special correspondent, Mary McDonough, Aaron from the Waltons, to join him.
Does it look different to you?
No, it looks very much the same, the way it did in the Depression.
And it's the same color?
It's the same color, yes. This is where my mother and father raised 8 children. The house is considerably smaller than the one that you see on the television show.
Can you go home again?
You bet you can. As long as you say nice things about your family, you can go home. We even had indoor plumbing and electric lights.
Wow. Like John Boy, Earl went off to college, joined the Army, and moved to New York to become a writer. This trip home was to help open the Waltons Mountain Museum. Joining him were 5 of the brothers and sisters he wrote about. That gave the actors who played them a chance to meet their real-life counterparts for the first time.
Well, we're so glad to have you all here.
Well, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be here.
Right.
Sometimes I think she did a better job of my growing up than I did.
I don't think there was anything that I ever did that was exactly the way you would have done it, but it was almost like a marriage of souls.
I was really anxious to see what you really look like. You haven't changed a whole lot.
Everyone keeps saying that.
And everyone says, hey, you two really look alike. You know, there's a resemblance, which I'm flattered.
And as Earl cut the ribbon to open the museum, he was cheered by about 5,000 members of his extended family, fans who had come from around the country to celebrate the program that they loved.
Growing up, it was the kind of show that you wanted to live with a family like that, and you wanted all families to be like that.
I cannot believe that I am sitting here with the people from the Waltons. It's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me.
I'm from Des Moines, Iowa, 6 years ago because of the Waltons. So I live right over here in North Garden, about 20 minutes away.
You moved here because of the Waltons?
Yes, yes.
Earl was not surprised. They'd been coming here from the moment the show went on the air.
My mother used to sit right here, and she'd serve them tea, and eventually I had to send her a little allowance to buy tea because she was running low. I know one year she kept a guest book, and there were over 4,000 people who came, and they came from all over the world.
The museum is drawing them again. It is filled not only with Walton's memorabilia, but with recreations of the sets used on the show, like the living room, the kitchen, Ike Godsey's store, and John Boy's bedroom.
I'm much obliged to you, Grandma.
This is John Boy's room, and we all used to come in here and jump on his bed and bother him while he was writing. And these are John Boy's glasses.
The event also gave the cast members a chance to see each other again. Mary was eager to show her TV family her brand new daughter.
Mary called me up and said, you're going to be a grandma. So there you are, life and art mixing. Huh?
That's true. See, this is Grandpa Ralph.
And as the weekend drew to a close, it was obvious to all there that the Waltons was more than a TV show. For these people, it was a dream of a family and life that they envied. For this man, it was a memory of a family and a life that was real.
How did the good nights come about?
It was just something we always did. And we would keep it up all night long if my father hadn't stopped it. You know, we'd start calling good night to each other, and then somebody else would think of a little message to send to another brother or sister. Finally, my father would have to say, okay, time to go to sleep. And we did.
The Waltons wasn't the only family that Earl brought to TV. He also created the not-so-nice TV clans from the primetime soap Falcon Crest.
Next on Entertainment Tonight's The Waltons Reunion.
Grandma Walton's stroke while she was starring in the show and her courage in coming back to the set.
That's, I think, one of the high points of the show.
Also, why Ma Walton left the series. Ben Walton's real-life triumph over tragedy.
It's been over 7 years since Teresa died.
The death of his wife and how he found love again. Mary McDonough, a Walton Kid's candid interview about her breast enlargement that went bad and how she overcame the pressure to be thin in Hollywood.
I did sort of feel like an animal in the zoo.
That's coming up.
Welcome back to Entertainment Tonight's The Waltons Reunion. And like any real-life family, the Waltons experienced their share of real-life tragedies.
The grandparents on the show, Will Geer and Ellen Corby, both suffered through health problems while the series was on the air. But their battles only managed to bring the cast even closer together.
Hold on, old woman. You've cut off enough back up there.
Who's cutting hair, you or me? Huh?
When you think of the Waltons, it's family that most comes to mind. But in television, as in life, even the closest of families sometimes have to say goodbye.
I wish now that I hadn't left the show.
She may have some regrets today, but in 1980, when Michael Learned asked to be let out of her contract, she felt the time had come for the mother of the Waltons brood to move on.
We have the running joke of me pouring coffee that they'd want me in a scene, but they couldn't think of anything for me to do, so they'd just, more coffee, John? More coffee, Grandma? More coffee. Anybody want more coffee?
With nary a cup of coffee to pour, producers wrote the 4-time Emmy winner out of the show by giving her tuberculosis and sending her packing to a sanitarium in Arizona. She admits the decision to leave weighed heavily for a long time.
I'd have a dream that, because every year we had to pose for the family photograph, and we'd all moan and bitch and complain, but I woke up crying one night because I dreamt they were having the family picture and they wouldn't let me be in it.
Still a busy working actress, Michael says being so identified with her role gets to be a little confusing.
It's kind of schizophrenic in a way because we have developed, we're like an extended family. But it also, you know, sometimes you have to keep reminding yourself that we are not the Waltons. And I make a point of you know, letting people know that I swear that I've had a rather colorful past and that I am not Olivia Walton.
As for Pa, Ralph Waite stayed atop Walton's Mountain for the entire 9-year run of the series.
There's a real bonding that took place.
But in the years since, the actor has turned his sights on another type of role, politician. A Democrat, Waite has run for Congress twice. First in 1990, and then again last year for the Palm Springs seat once occupied by Sonny Bono. He lost to Bono's widow, Mary. But politics aside, the actor considers the friendships he forged on the Waltons to be one of his greatest accomplishments.
Very, very close to me, and I'm very love them very, very much.
To the entire cast, Will Geer didn't just play Grandpa, he was Grandpa.
It was almost like having Santa Claus on the set. I mean, he was just this jolly, jolly man.
Will was always so excited. Whenever he was on the set, it was like fresh water.
I remember him telling us all the Latin names of all the plants around the back lot and quoting Woody Guthrie and Shakespeare.
He sort of lived by his own set of rules, and I think he did exactly what he wanted to do, and he went out at exactly when he wanted to go out.
When Will died in 1978 at the age of 76, the one-time political activist who had endured Hollywood's blacklist had succeeded in capturing the hearts of a nation.
It was like a family. You know, I felt real sad that he was gone.
But perhaps the most heartfelt and inspiring story during the show is reserved for Grandma Ellen Corby.
We called her Grandma for real. We never called her Ellen or Miss Corby. We always called her Grandma.
But when Ellen suffered a debilitating stroke during the show's 7th season, her castmates were also crushed.
It was just devastating, and I remember, trying to go to the hospital to see her, and we were desperate to see her because we wanted her to know that we were there for her.
The great tragedy for me with Ellen was that with that stroke, what that did to her.
Here was a woman that was so articulate, and she was so able to communicate, and the one thing was cut off, her ability to talk.
When Ellen got sick, I was young. I knew it was something very serious. But I think I learned a great lesson because she came back.
Despite being barely able to speak, Ellen returned the following season. Earl Hamner incorporated her stroke into the storyline. In her first show back, her dialogue was limited to 2 words.
When Olivia said to her, noticing that she was withdrawn, "Grandma, what's the matter with you?" Ellen, who had practiced the 2 words in her limited voice, said, "Need me." It was tremendously moving.
That's one of the truly great things that the show did, is having Ellen come back and play Grandma as a stroke victim, because it was just so real.
She inspired so many people and got letters and letters and letters up until the day she died.
Ellen passed away in April of this year. She was 87. And like her TV husband, her legacy lives on with those who counted her as part of the family.
I loved them like grandparents, and when they died, I mourned them like they were grandparents. They'll always be a very, very soft part in my heart for them.
Coming up on Entertainment Tonight's The Waltons Reunion.
The Waltons' daughter who posed for Playboy, what she says about her religion, Scientology.
It's the most amazing subject I've ever encountered in my life.
The Waltons' kids and their family get together to make a new CD of music. Mary McDonough, her breast implant horror and why she feared for her young daughter's health.
If anybody had ever told me what we know about implants now, I never, ever would have had them.
Her courage to overcome.
That's next.
What is your favorite memory from Walton's Mountain? Click onto our ET website with your recollections and comments about the show. And Entertainment Tonight's The Waltons Reunion will be right back.
You're watching Entertainment Tonight's The Waltons Reunion.
Actress Mary McDonough grew up on the Waltons, and since the series went off the air, Mary's bond with her TV brothers and sisters has remained strong.
But those bonds have also been tested. During the last decade, Mary has faced some very frightening problems with her health, and every time she knew where to turn.
I have such dear, dear friends from the show, and everybody just so lovely and warm and close, and that's so special, and we're so lucky.
Now she can't get a Super Deluxe Beauty Kit.
Mary McDonough admits it was tough growing up in front of the camera as Erin. Though she always felt close to her Walton family, she suffered from low self-esteem, leading to a battle with bulimia.
What I do remember is a lot of people pointing and staring. And at one time, I did sort of feel like an animal in the zoo. And I did feel pressure from different wardrobe people, you know, and teasing me about my hips and, you know, will you still fit into your wardrobe from last year? So yeah, I was always on a diet. People are so insensitive about how people look. And as a young girl, when you're growing up, the smallest little thing where someone could say about my hips may have been a compliment, but I thought it was something horrible and then thought, well, then there's something wrong with me, I better change it.
McDonough was 20 years old when the Waltons ended its 9-year run. The California native still struggled with a poor self-image.
When I finished the show, I wanted more than anything to be an actress and continue in my chosen field. And at that time, it was the 80s and a lot of things were sexy, and so it was suggested to me that my body image wasn't exactly that sexy image, and I was losing parts.
Seeking to attain Hollywood's sexy ideal, Mary underwent silicone breast implant surgery in 1984.
When I went to have implants, I always felt that there was something really odd about it, and I kept it a secret. I really didn't tell anybody, so there was so much shame involved with it.
Following the surgery, McDonough developed a series of strange symptoms, including fever, joint stiffness, and shooting pains in her muscles.
If anybody had ever told me what we know about implants now, I never, ever would have had them. And that's my whole issue, is that if I knew the information that was kept a secret, I wouldn't have done it. No, I don't say that nobody should. Everybody has their own choice to make, but I want women now to know what they're up against. Repeat surgeries, local complications, and rupture rates.
At the age of 33, Mary finally had enough and decided to have her implants removed. To her horror, the surgeon discovered the polyurethane foam shells had disintegrated.
And then they ruptured in my system, and I got very, very sick, and I have now I have lupus, which I believe was triggered by the chemicals and the rupture of the implants. Lupus is a connective tissue disease that affects the body's immune system. It's almost as if the body's allergic to itself. It's the opposite of AIDS.
In its early stages, Mary's fight against lupus was difficult. It put strain on her 8-year marriage with former actor Rob Wickstrom. The two divorced in 1996, but remain friends. But Mary is most concerned about her daughter, Sydney. She's fearful that when she breastfed Sydney as an infant, she may have harmed her. The 7-year-old has experienced some health problems that Mary believes may have come from her implants.
I wouldn't have done it if I had known. Not a chance. With how it's affected my life, never. Never. And my child's life, you know. That's the most horrible part. What do I tell them to do?
Mary has not let the hardships of her life keep her down. Instead, the host of the cable talk show, McDougal MD, is active in educating others about lupus and lobbies Congress on behalf of women's rights.
I figure it all happened to me for a reason, you know, and I'm still here. And the funny thing is that now that I've gone through all that, and I'm working now more than I ever have before, and I have, you know, my implants have been removed, and I'm smaller than I ever was, and now I'm working a lot more, and I'm healthier than I've ever been.
Action.
I'd like you to meet your new babysitter.
The 38-year-old is now a producer and continues acting, including guest spots on Ally McBeal and ER. Mary also stays in close touch with her Walton clan, who will always remain part of her family.
We always had each other.
Mary's close relationship with her former co-stars is reflected in her friendship with Eric Scott.
You see, what happened to Eric is just too dramatic for even Hollywood to dream up. Now, Mary takes us to Eric's home for his inspirational story of love, loss, and triumph over devastating tragedy.
It's been 7 years. It's been over 7 years since Teresa died.
Teresa was Eric's wife. They married in 1989. But just when the couple was about to celebrate the birth of their first child, Ashley, Teresa was diagnosed with a vicious form of leukemia. Teresa underwent a cesarean and started chemotherapy only hours later, but her body couldn't endure it. She died without seeing her child.
Come on.
Ashley is now 7 years old, the joy of Eric's life. My Waltons co-star has also managed to find love again with his fiancée, Cindy Wolfen.
So, can I see the ring?
Yay! Eric and Cindy met just 6 months ago and are now busy planning for their wedding in March. It's been a whirlwind romance, one that's helped Cindy get over her own sadness.
Well, I'm a widow, and Eric's a widower, and we met at a wine tasting through a group called Our House that provides bereavement support groups for young widows and widowers. And we were sitting there talking, having a little bit of fun, I think, flirting.
Yes.
And then the next week he called me.
Did you know right away?
I hate to say yes so quickly, but yeah. I mean, it was like immediately we connected so quick and so wonderfully.
How does it feel to be an instant mom?
It feels really natural and wonderful. We just have such a good time together, the three of us, that I couldn't think of it being any other way.
Did you like the story, John Boy?
When Cindy met Eric, she didn't know about his years as Ben Walton. But since then, she's met most of us and become part of our extended family.
I thought it was great. Everyone was taking care of me, making sure that I wouldn't get weirded out by it. But now everyone's just so wonderful.
Ashley thinks it's all pretty wonderful as well, and she'll sing at the wedding.
I have a personal question. Do they ever kiss?
Yeah.
Kiss?
A lot.
Let me see. Do they really? Do you get embarrassed?
No.
Coming up on Entertainment Tonight's The Waltons Reunion.
Mary McDonough catches up with John Boy.
I always felt that it might have been hurtful that I left.
We're at home with Richard Thomas to reminisce about his days on the show, why he left, and meet his 3-year-old son, Montana. The Waltons kids co-stars and how they fell in love on the set.
We had these kissing scenes, and they'd never yell cut.
The secrets from behind the scenes.
That's next.
Recently, it has been the Waltons' children who have brought the family together, creating a new CD that features some of the Waltons cast.
Now, as they take us inside the studio, we look at how their lives have changed, including 2 cast members who married and 1 Waltons kid who posed for Playboy.
Once I get the beauty kit, I'll probably get so beautiful, I'll go to Hollywood, California, and become a famous movie star.
It's opened so many doors, and I've had so many opportunities and met people and been places that I just don't think I would have happened for me had it not been for the series.
Like her character Mary Ellen, Judy Norton has been a bit of a rebel. She posed in Playboy and appears on Showtime's racy Beggars and Choosers. Judy says the controversial religion Scientology has played a major part in her career.
It's the most amazing subject I've ever encountered in my life.
Now a national spokeswoman, Judy joined Scientology at age 13, 3 months before her Waltons audition, and claims that studying the religion gave her the needed confidence to land her breakthrough role.
By the time I went in to audition for that, I was able to go in with this sort of cocky, confident attitude that was very much who Mary Ellen was.
Hi, we're here, we're recording, and the Walton Christmas album. It's very scary.
Judy's bond with the Waltons has remained strong, and she recently went into the recording studio with her TV family to record A Waltons Christmas Together Again.
It's really all about the Waltons at home at Christmas time, and I think it really sounds like us.
John Walmsley, who starred as Jason, produced the holiday CD, now in stores. The clan came from all around the country, including Cammie Cotler's Elizabeth. And the songs, many of which were written by John, struck quite an emotional chord.
In Snowman Land.
Ralph, our father, my father, the only one I have left, reads this poem about what happens when snowmen melt. I was bawling.
It moved me. I started to cry too. So, I don't know. We're just a bunch of crybabies, but we really, we genuinely care for each other.
Much has changed for the Waltons children over the years. John's a professional musician in L.A. Judy both acts and teaches acting in Canada. Cammie's a Virginia high school teacher with baby number 2 on the way. And David's an L.A.-based artist. But they remain very close, having bonded tightly growing up on the set.
It was just about, I think, the best experience that you could have as a little kid on a TV series. I was the youngest. Everyone protected me.
It was great for me. I was an only child, and suddenly I knew what it was like to be part of a big family.
Those family ties run especially deep for John and his wife Lisa. They were already a couple when she was cast as his TV wife. They were married by Ralph, an ordained minister. Then they had their reception at Michael's house. And when we visited them at home in 1992, they told us that falling in love on the Waltons was made a little easier by the cast and crew.
They'd love to torture us, and we had these kissing scenes, and they'd never yell cut. And so we would be there just making out and making out and making out. The crew says, yeah, okay, yeah, mm-hmm.
And with their family so tied into their TV one, today John truly can appreciate the deeper meaning behind Walton's Mountain.
It's something that has become so important to so many people that they've gotten some true meaning and value from. I think that's a wonderful thing.
John Walmsley wasn't just famous for the Waltons. No, he also provided the voice of Christopher Robin for a 1968 version of Winnie the Pooh that won Walt Disney an Academy Award.
Next on Entertainment Tonight's The Waltons Reunion.
John Boy's stories from behind the scenes on the show.
For that whole year, I mean, I really came unglued.
Special correspondent Mary McDonough talks to Richard Thomas about their TV family, his real-life family, and what things were really like behind the scenes of Walton's Mountain.
We were naughty. We had to do a scene over.
That's next.
He was John Boy, the catalyst behind every Waltons episode and perhaps the most well-known member of the cast. Then, in 1977, Richard Thomas left the show.
In the years since, Richard has taken on all sorts of roles, but he'll always be known as John Boy. Now his Walton sister, Mary McDonough, goes to Richard's home to share their memories of those days back on the mountain.
Do you have
Grandma.
one?
No. Are you kidding? You think you would have got him on anything?
I know.
I love this.
Isn't it cool? Look at, you just pull him out. He's an
Oh,
alien
this is really strange.
Visiting Richard is like visiting family, and my gift for his son Montana made it obvious he's an actor.
Yeah, can you take this alien out for me?
You like those guys? You're going to play with us?
Here, I'll
And then
take
they
this
live in
one
the goo, right? They go back in the goo when you're done
Go
playing.
in the goo.
Whoops.
So he's dry.
Did you ever feel like you were our big brother?
Oh, sure. I had a, you know, an older sibling feeling about everybody. I mean, I was also having my own. I was away from my family. You know, I had left the East Coast where my family was, and I was out here by myself. So I had no family members here from my own family. So I think I did enter into a sort of familial relationship with everybody on the set. You know, I had parental figures, grandparental figures, sibling figures around. And I bonded that way very strongly. We spent more time with each other 5 days a week than we did with our own families, with anybody else. I remember when we picked our places around the dining room table.
I don't remember that. Tell me.
Well, you know, it was the first show. We had to decide where everybody sat, you know, because we realized that then directors would want to come in and, based on the scene, they'd change where everybody was sitting, and everybody would say, no, everybody has their place at the table. You don't understand. That's not how it works in a family. You have to change. You have to design your shots around where this family sits. And they all figured that out eventually. But I placed myself between Will and Cammie. Now, this just gives you some idea of how completely ignorant I was. just what a greenhorn I was.
Did meeting Earl help you with John Boy?
Oh, completely. I mean, you know, Earl just really is the show.
Did he ever give you any tips?
He never gave me an acting note. I mean, he was so gracious and I felt very accepting of what I was doing. There were a couple of times when we'd do scenes that, you know, they'd come back and I think they made Ralph and I reshoot a scene once because we played it a little risque and they felt that it was not quite, you know, it should have been a little more serious. We actually had to reshoot. We were naughty. We had to do a scene over.
Hard to believe with you and Ralph.
Yeah, I know. And but other than that, and I'm sure that they were right about it. But other than that, you know, Earl was just supportive all the time. And here I was, you know, this smart-ass 21-year-old, you know, with a television series to do, and you know, moved out to L.A. and you know, Mr. Know-It-All, and what a pain in the butt. But I love the show.
It's not my memory of you at all.
Well, I'm glad, but you were younger. You were even younger than I was.
How did you decide to leave the show?
I always knew I would go after 5 years. When I signed, the original contract was for 5 years. And I figured I was 21, I'd be 26 when the 5 years were up, and it would be time to go on and do something else. And I never changed my mind. It was a decision I made in the first year. I never thought it would go 5 years. Who did?
I remember when he was filming his final scene, the scene that I knew would be his final scene, and just thinking, I need to remember this because this is like the last time he'll be here. And
yeah, I was really sad to see Richard leave the show because we had such a good time together. I really looked up to him and idolized him, and he really was like a big brother.
We renegotiated and got more money. No, we did actually. But I think the show changed after Richard left. I think the first 5 years are the years that were really special.
I never felt it was a mistake, but I always felt that it might have been hurtful that I left. The people felt maybe that I walked out on them, but I never had a problem with anybody. There was never any question of being unhappy. It was just I just knew it was enough for me. And when I left the show, even though it was a happy experience, for that whole year, I mean, I really came unglued because I'd become it was a separation from the show, from the people, was huge. And as long as we keep getting, I keep getting older and fatter, I guess people want to keep tuning in to see what he looks like now. I can see it on the tombstone, John Boy dead at 105. Hey, from my lips to God's ears, I'd love to live to 105.
Yes.
Thank you, Mary. And Richard's movie roles continue. He's co-starring with Michael Douglas in The Wonder Boys, and we'll be right back with more Waltons Family Memories.
You know, the Waltons cast members really treat their fans as part of the family as well, and they welcome your letters and questions.
And you can send all your correspondence to the Waltons Mountain Museum in Schuyler, Virginia, and the good folks there will forward it to all the stars.
Well, we're going to leave you now with even more wonderful memories from Waltons Mountain. Hope you enjoyed the hour.
Good night, John Boy.
Good night, Mary Ellen.
Yeah. So long.
And in addition to the music, there's some spoken parts where people do Christmas readings, and there's dialogue.
'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that Saint Nicholas soon would be there.
When we were sitting in the studio and I was watching John and Judy and Mary and Cammie all singing and doing their thing, it was really wonderful at how professional they were and how good they were.
So traditional with the show, the good nights, and it's really beautiful. And once we heard the songs, we all kind of came together and thought, you know, this is really nice. It turned out much better than we thought.
Good night, Grandpa.
Good night, everybody. Merry Christmas.
Good night, Jason. Good night, Ben.
Good night, Aaron. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Ben. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Grandma. Good night, Grandpa.
Good night. Entertainment Tonight. Always there.